Good evening. There you go, much better. Tonight we're going to talk about the chapter 5 from the Gospel according to the Spiritism, where Jesus teaches about the blessed are the afflicted. It's a very important subject, and I would like to invite you to go to the Gospel and take a look at all the items in there. It's a very, very important for us to study that and to learn what's the reason behind that, why Jesus said that blessed are the afflicted. We needed to focus on the importance of this title that Jesus divided us to do, because afflictions, everyone on this planet, it's going to have it. We know that we are here today, reincarnated in this new life on this planet, but we have lived before, and we have committed a lot of wrong things toward others. And based on the laws that govern this planet, the law of cause and one of them, the cause and effect and action reaction, we have to deal with the consequences of our own mistakes, of our own wrongdoing toward others. So we come back in here in this planet of trials and expiations again, and we bring with us what we call the reincarnatory plan. This plan was put together in the spiritual world that is important for us. Those are the things that we need to repair and fulfill before divine justice. Things that we have committed wrongs toward others, so now we have to deal with it. As we come back in here, reincarnate in this planet, and we'll begin our journey again, our life, we have, in order to make sure we're going to do what we promise in most cases. Each case is different, but in most cases we promise that we're going to do right, we're going to fix the problem we have about somebody else and everything, and so forth. So when we reincarnate here, we begin our journey. Our journey starts in the family. So in most of the cases, the family are our enemies from previous life. Not everyone is. Each case is different. But for many of us, we have a lot of things to do to repair with this spirit. So we reincarnate again all together. When we are there, we begin to act. We put in practice what we know. And those are the trials that we face in life. Trials are the things that's going to make us to test our patience, our faith, our understanding, or understanding of adversities, why things happen to us, and so forth. In this case, there's an item on this chapter 5, I believe it's item 8, I forgot to put in here. They talked about the specific about insanity and suicide. Suicide, we're not going to get into details of what the person does, what's happened to them or anything, but we're going to talk about as a prevention, how to prevent from commit such a harmful thing to ourselves. So, and then we're going to be talking about the causes that incite suicide and insanity, emphasizing that calm, deep resignation, faith in God, and faith in the future life are the means we need to use to avoid them. Why this is important to remember, why this is so important to avoid them. As I mentioned, we are here. We have lived before. We're going to face situations in our lives that we're going to require a lot of us, from calm, has resignation. How we have resignation? The resignation is when we try to understand the laws that govern this planet, God's law and Jesus' teachings. As we understand that, we begin to execute that in our lives, which is the most important step. It takes a long time for us to achieve that. It's not an easy thing to do. And as we do that, it's the moment that's going to require from us to be calm, to be patient, to understand that person is doing something against me because he doesn't know better. So I'm not going to react against that person in a negative way because I'm going to cause myself problems. Every time I do that, I am going to be planting a tree. And this tree is going to produce bad fruits in the future. In order for me to have a good fruits, I have to deal with that with calm, have a resignation, the understanding that everything's happened for a reason, and so on. So that's why we are going to study all of this so we can avoid this. So this is the lack of practicing this. It's the primary cause which is going to lead the person to the consequence of causing to himself suicidal. And also, based on that, that's one of the reasons Jesus said, you will know the truth. That means you will understand why things happen to us. And by acting right on it, you will set yourself free. That means you're going to avoid so much complications for your future. Before we start that's talking about the cases of insanity and its attributions. Most of these cases are due to perturbation. A person has, they feel that when they are dealing with others, he doesn't know how to receive, to accept the negative things, so that things perturbs this person. Produced by the vicissitudes of life, that means of life that men do not have the ability to endure. If you don't have the understanding of to deal with when someone acts wrong against you, you're going to end up acting like that. You're going to create to yourself a lot of problems. So this is, I got this from the website online. Those are the perturbation means worry, agitation, panic, uneasiness, discomposure. Isn't that something that happened to us pretty much? If you think about it, you're probably going to say, I'm not crazy, I'm not going to kill myself. But that's a start. If you think about it, just this sentence in here. How many times during the day we produce that? We worry about things. Does it make sense? We get agitated because things doesn't happen the way we want it. We get in panic because we can fulfill our obligations, in certain cases material obligations. When things are not easy for us, or any other example that you can think about it. So the word perturbation means a deviation of a system. What system is that you are deviating from it? You are creating impediments for your success. What system he's talking about here? He's talking about the system are the laws that govern this planet. Laws of, for example, the cause and effect, and action, reaction, law of affinity, law of labor, and so many others, which is described entirely on the Spirit's book. So by trying to avoid, many people, when they face tribulations in their life, they can't deal with it. It's okay. Everyone needs to take their own time, but we have to deal with that on a positive way. If you're doing that, you are trying to follow the path of righteousness. That's the system that we should take, the path of righteousness. By not doing that, you are creating to yourself all these problems. So from moving object or process from its regular or normal state of path, some people are used to one way of dealing with things. If some things change, oh my gosh, I'm going to go crazy. We don't need to, we can't, but we shouldn't. Not everything that we can, we should do, right? caused by an outside influence. When something in a family, for example, that we've been talking about earlier, causes some disturbance to the situation, we have the tendency to not deal with that in a positive way. So by not doing that, we are deviating from the system. We are creating to ourselves problems. That makes sense? So, and then comes vicissitudes, are changes and variations that happen to us in our lives. That means it's a change of circumstance, of fortune, typically one that is unwelcome or unpleasant. Anything that changes in our lives, it gives us a sense of that we are in trouble. We are worried about it, like the previous slide. We don't know how to deal with it. We pull out your hairs and so forth. So we are creating all this problem to ourselves when there is none. We are the problems. We are creating. Instead of dealing with in a good way, in a positive way, why I am going to do that? Because I am on a world of trials and expiations. Those things are trials that is going to come to us in our lives. If you would not deal with it in a positive way, we're going to have problems. That's why Jesus said, blessed are they afflicted. But he's talking about the ones are trying to do the right way. Not the ones that are afflicted because they are crazy, they don't know what to do. They are completely lost. They start doing wrong things, against God's law. We can't do that. That's not the one he's talking about. He's talking about the ones that are trying their best. But how are you going to try your best? But everybody wants to, right? Everyone wants to do the right thing. But sometimes we don't know the right thing. That's why it's important to come here so we can study together and we can learn together that the importance of all of this and how to execute that in our own lives. Dealing with the misfortune and disappointments of life. Is there something that we do? Yeah? Who does that? Who says that? Well, good for you. Recognize them as fleeting things which teach us lessons. See? Why this is going to teach me a lesson? Because God wanted you to do it what you promised that you was going to do. So he gives you trials, are the problems in our life. If you take it in, like she mentioned, with serenity, with calm, with a positive thing, like I want to do this, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to mess up again, God, but I wanted to learn this. Please help me to learn this, because I wanted to do it right. He's going to keep doing that, and he's going to end up getting right. Recognize them as things which teach us a lesson that lead us to attain of our happiness. That's the only way you're going to feel the happiness. That's why many people say that on the gospel somewhere in there also said the happiness does not belong to this planet of trials and expiations, but it starts in here. You're not going to be happy on a more evolved planet if you not learn how to be happy. That makes sense? Our sufferings are not eternal because we only have one life at a time. We live one life at a time. So this life, I needed to deal with everything because in the next one, and then the suffering is going to end, and the next one is going to have a new trials for me to go through. This way, we needed to vivify in our hearts the spark of hope, and our pains will become gentler. The word serenity, it means to be calm, be tranquility, calmness, the state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. If you look outside today in our society, every single one that they can call themselves any religion, they can call themselves Christian, whatever it is. they pretty much forget to apply this to their lives. It's amazing. And we ourselves, by living among this society, we end up getting ourselves into that, being part of it. So we need to stand out from all of this. When you go through a situation, remember what we are talking about here. And step back, take our time, take a deep, deep, deep breath, and act with calmness. Think about it before we act. So that's the only way you're going to be able to deal with that in a positive way. And how can we attain serenity? Serenity is the best preventative against insanity and suicide. How can we attain it? The best preventative against insanity and suicide is serenity. And we can attain it through being calm, have a resignation, a faith in God, and faith in the future life. This is how we're going to obtain serenity and calmness in our spirits. This is the only way, but like I mentioned earlier, this is not pretty much how we decided to do things in life, unfortunately. And because of this, we are creating to ourselves a lot of problems. They are the best prevention against that. And if you think about it, like I said, we're not going to get in details of how it happens and what led that person to commit a suicide or not. But if you think about it, if you do a study on it, like the enlightened spirits do in the spiritual world, when they are there with them so they can understand what we're talking about here today, this is exactly what they're going to be talking about. And we're not going to realize, it was like, oh my gosh, I have all that opportunities in my life that God gave to me by love, which is the trials. And I did not act right with that. And I create so many problems, which led me to do this, this thing that I did to myself. It's sad, but that's the way things are, unfortunately. Inevitable suicide. There are no unbearable problem that will lead man to inevitably to commit suicide. There's like I said, each case it's different. What led that person to do that, it's different. But in all the cases, no matter which one is, none of them was impossible for that person to go through. But he decided to do that because the lack of understanding, pure ignorance, which makes much, much easier to them when they go back to the spiritual world. It is clear that suicide always results from a cause of discontent, whatever the particular reason you might have, which leads for that to all the samples we have out there about this important topic. So those are the main causes of suicide. One of the main causes is disbelief or doubt about the future. This is true. Many people don't understand the future life. Materialistic ideas and rebellion are major instigators of suicide because they give rise to moral cowardice. What he's talking about here, ideas and rebelliousness, being rebellious against life, is, but you might, like I mentioned earlier, you might think, oh, but I don't do none of that. But every time you have a trial that God gives it to you and you don't act right toward this trial, you being rebellious against God's law. No matter what, you can say it. He said this is the same thing that he mentioned on Jesus mentioned a passage when he talks about the wedding banquet. That the certain man prepared the banquet and he invited the guests. The banquet, the certain man is God. The banquet, it's the word that he created to us. And he put us in here. And he invites us by love to deal with the problems, which is the trials, and we say no to it in most of the cases. And in this level of evolution that we are today, it's not going to happen in a brutal way. It's going to happen on a very subtle way. An example of that is the fact that many people like to gossip about things. They can wait till someone tell them a story. They go out and about telling everyone about it. That's being rebellious against life, against God's law. How? We don't, if you don't, like one of these books that we read, the message, it says, if you don't have something good to say about somebody, just don't say anything. It's something very simple. And you can go on with many things, manipulations, trying to manipulate people and things to happen the way we want it, and so forth. And this word of trials and expiations, that's what we are going to face in every day in our lives. And it's up to individual to understand what's happening, to deal with adversities in a positive way. That's why when the teachings of Jesus also mention about that many of us, it's been called, many of us, but just a few has been chosen. The few of the ones that has been chosen are the ones that are trying to deal with everyday life in a positive way, without causing any more complications to us. Materialism and disbelief, the cause of suicide and insanity. This is true only because it gives them nothing. So the idea of nothing, it's the only perspective that they have. It is better to reach out for this right the way than to continue suffering. If they are suffering, it is a consequence of a primary cause. The suffering is secondary. What is the primary cause? He's not understanding God's law, God's calling by love, which is our trials, and he's being rebellious against that. So that's why it leads the person to suffer. A man can live for some time without food and without water for a short period of time, but he cannot survive without hope. And that's true. The fact of people don't have much hope, and they don't have the understanding of the future life, it is complicated because they don't expect anything more in life. I have two examples that I can give it to you. Actually, 3 examples. It's amazing. Strangers, I don't know if it happened to you, but strangers sometimes, they see me, they come talk to me. So I met 3 people. One of them became a good friend of mine, and he was suffering with depression. And I told him I could, help him by, we can sit down, he liked to talk about the Bible. And I offered to sit down with him to talk about it. And so we'll help him to understand some things. And when he was going to do that, somebody in the family told, no, don't trust Eduardo, don't go to talk to him, blah, blah, blah. A short time later, he was only 21 years old. Short time later, he couldn't take anymore, and he committed suicide. The second one was a neighbor that I didn't know him. I just saw him downstairs, and he came talk to me once, several times, and he was very sick. You could tell, like mentally sick. And I was trying to talk to him, and every time he was coming, he had stories to tell me. And as he was telling me stories, I was standing there and praying for him. And I told him some things between the stories that he was telling me about the importance of the future life, to take care of things now, and so forth. And these stories he was telling me, for several times, he always told me he have a gun in his apartment. And he said, if someone comes in here trying to steal stuff from here, I'm going to kill these people. Like, oh my gosh, this guy is kind of crazy, really. So we started talking to him and more. Things was getting worse and worse. I offered to him again, let's sit down.